A few years ago, when I was having trouble getting into the garden, a good friend of mine very kindly offered to come and help me with it. It was only when it was too late that I discovered that his approach to gardening was to pull up and throw away anything that looked like a weed. I managed to save a few of the flowers I'd carefully treasured and nurtured, but many ended up on his bonfire. It was one of those moments that I'd completely forgotten about until reminded of it by the Gospel reading for this week and the parable of the weeds. As with all such parables, Jesus made his point in ways that the audience would have been able to easily identify and relate to. The weeds, or the tares as they are sometimes known, hence this being known as the terrible parable, yeah, I know it's bad, but never mind, were a common feature back then. In their early stages, it was difficult to tell them from the wheat, and their roots would intertwine. Trying to get rid of them too soon could result in the farmer doing as my friend did and pulling out what you were trying to save. In his explanation of the story, Jesus is quite clear about who is who and what is what, which is very useful. What he says, though, can also and perhaps should raise a few questions for us to think about. For example, when he says the good seed stands for the sons of the kingdom, think for a minute on what that says about us. Sons, and nowadays daughters of course, of the kingdom. Sons and daughters of the kingdom. I mean, for me, that is a really powerful image about me and our relationship with God. It's like in the Lord's Prayer when we open with those absolutely brilliant words, Our Father. Our Father, sons of the kingdom. A very special relationship. And one that's reinforced by the words of today's psalm. For whoever wrote it realised that we can hide nothing from our God and Father in that special relationship. He sees and knows everything about us. As parents, and perhaps grandparents for me as a teacher, you just know, don't you, when your dear little ones had done something wrong. And who knows? Even some of us might have shared in those heartfelt words of verse 7 at times. Where can I go from your spirit? A touch of, I can't do anything without you finding out, can I? More of that in a moment. Because we cannot escape the contrast in the parable either. For with the wheat comes the weeds. The wheat is sown by the Son of Man, but the weeds are sown by the devil. Not a fashionable concept, but an unavoidable one, for someone puts them there, and he makes a good job of it, because it takes a long time to see what they are. So much so that you can't always see and tell the good from the bad. Sadly, rather like much of the world today, though. This, though, is more than a general reflection. It's a subtle warning to all of us about the dangers of being too keen to deal with those we perceive of as weeds. Like my garden, we run the risk of pulling up what is good because we don't recognise what is there. And as Jesus makes clear, pulling up the weeds is his job. And it is a job that will be done. Again, something we tend to avoid talking about today, the day of judgment. But as Jesus is making very clear, that day will come, and the field that is his word will be cleared of all the weeds. As we think about that day, we might want to revert back to the words of Psalm 139. We could, however, hold on to his words with joy and hope, for it will be and should be a time to look forward to for the world, a world that so desperately needs it. The day when, as he says, they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. A day when the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Their Father. Our Father. May we all look forward to that day, and may we pray for it every time we say these words: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.